I wanted to talk about what Matt Stinchcomb was touching on during his hit with Paul Feinbaum earlier this week. I think this was Tuesday. And here's what Matt had to say about Georgia's offense. He said that what's the biggest difference is A.D. Mitchell, and he was saying A.D. Mitchell isn't playing. He said it's the way they're starting games that's giving people pause. It's the little things, and the problem is that it's the little things each week. And he goes on to say in different parts of what he's talking about. He said no A.D. Mitchell, and Kirby Smart said we've got to get some wide receivers healthy. And I think he was talking about one wide receiver in particular. It was A.D. Mitchell. A.D. went out after the first series of that game, and the offense hasn't been the same since. The offense hasn't been as consistent since, no doubt about that. It was certainly very good in the second half against Missouri and Auburn. But the global point is correct. When you don't have your best receiver out there, you're going to notice. There are a lot of things missing right now. Very rarely is there something that Matt says that's off base. So I think to me, this is I was sitting there. We're always sitting there when Kirby says this stuff. We were out there at Missouri, and he was acknowledging that Georgia has got to get healthy at receiver. He was unquestionably talking about A.D. Mitchell. Yeah, Arian Smith too, but Arian Smith hasn't been as productive as A.D. Mitchell. I mean, Arian's had two long catches, I think one for a touchdown. But A.D. Mitchell's been there the whole time. I mean, this play doesn't just happen in the national championship game. I was talking with A.D. about it in the summer, and he told me about how him and Stetson knew that was man coverage. Tank RT red tank, excuse me, train RT red tank double go. Something we write about in DAWGSTRUCTION. Down 18-13 from with time melting off the fourth quarter clock. Georgia was backed up on the second down due to a sack. The Dogs needed to make something happen. Stetson made the call. Train RT red tank double go on Tuesday, meaning on two. A.D. Mitchell burst down the field and beat Kyrie Jackson for a 40-yard touchdown. 40-yard touchdown. The Dogs were back on top for good. A.D. on top. That's what won the game. That won the game. Kirby Smart told the team in the locker room after the game. We've got a diagram of what everybody's doing on that play, and it was just single coverage. Well, they might be getting single coverage right now as receivers. I'm not sure. But something's missing, and it's been the production of A.D. Mitchell at a minimum. Make sure you're picking up DAWGSTRUCTION. The link is down below. We're going to be at Paloma Park perhaps by the time you're watching this. Come on over to Paloma. Come on over to Paloma. It was very crowded by the end of the night, so get there early so that you can hang out and talk. And with Ryan and I, we'll be there from 4 to 7 on Friday. This is an important moment in Georgia's season because this is the final game before the last break. Before the break after the SEC championship. But if you don't handle these next few games right, it won't matter that you're getting a break after the SEC championship because you won't be playing in the playoff. So I don't know if AD will play. This week, Kirby's been not as positive as he was. He's looking back on it, and he's essentially saying, hey, he was pretty much ready to go in the Auburn game, but we just didn't use him as much as we thought we would. And by the time we really wanted to use him, he'd kind of been through the game was kind of, and we just decided to kind of shut it down. This week he said that AD's not, it doesn't, I think you would not bet right now that he's going to play for sure. And even if he does, that he's going to play a lot. But you can't just turn it on. I mean, he's not played since the Kent State game, which is 3 weeks ago, coming on 4 this Saturday. And you don't just go out there and it magically starts working, and you need to play or practice. And so that's the question as we get into this this Vanderbilt game with AD is, can he get back out there just some? I know he played some against Auburn, but can you maybe get him 2 or 3 catches? You may or may not recall this. It doesn't take a long time, but they threw the ball once to George Pickens against Georgia Tech. It was just enough to just kind of get it moving. A week later, he makes a big play against Alabama, and Georgia needed George in that playoff run, and in the second game against Alabama, of course, he was much better, but that was almost 2 months later. It was almost 6 weeks later, whatever. So um, with Mitchell now, you're talking about a time period where he's going to. I would like to see him play. I'm sure everybody watching this would like to see him play, but for his own, uh, what's the term? For there to have some ability to have some explosion, that's what you'd want from AD Mitchell. In Georgia, um, in 2021, 82 times Georgia threw a completed pass for at least 15 yards. That's a lot. We've not quite seen that this year. I would have to go back and count every single play, which I'm not above. But, Georgia's not been popping it right down the field. And part of that, Stetson, I mean, I don't think there's much question to me that Stetson was dinged up and has been dinged up since Missouri for sure. You go back and watch the highlights of that game. Go back and do the 30-minute, on YouTube deal. He really got popped quite a bit, and he had to get through that first half. And in the second, he was much better. He did not play great against Auburn in terms of hitting the deep ball. I mean, the Ladd McConkey throw, but the Brock Bowers, that was the bad one. And if you hit both those, are we even having this discussion right now about how Georgia's, kind of sloppy on the offensive side of the ball? Probably still, because this is what we do. But I think what Matt is talking about is important because Mitchell, you don't want to have the type of season where it's only a second half season. And, AD, and I'm going to look this up real quick as we go. AD, it sure seems like, is their number one receiver. And they've essentially had him for 3 games. Well, yeah, three-ish games. So not Kent State, not Missouri, and not Auburn. Certainly not at Missouri. And there are times when you have to grind these things out. The flip side to that is, in terms of just straight up production, and I talked about this on Thursday in riding home, or one of the discussions with Matt. If I told you that Georgia was throwing for more yards a game than Ohio State, would you believe me? And y'all wouldn't. Y'all would not believe me. And it would be your prerogative not to believe me. But it's true. And that's the part that's so crazy, is that they're still throwing the ball all over the place. Now, one thing is, Mitchell, it can't all be Mitchell. It does matter a lot, but it can't all be Mitchell. I mean, Mitchell's got 5 catches this year for 69 yards and a touchdown. That's kind of it. And I think it's a combination of a lot of little things like Matt's been talking about, which is, the offensive line played really well, certainly against Auburn, I thought. Played very well against Missouri in the second half. I'm already to the point in this season where I'm getting the games confused. Did we just get back from Missouri? Oh my God, that game was just, yes, we did. Man, I'm serious, man. I mean, like those trips are like, you go to South Carolina, Tennessee, Auburn. When you go to Missouri, or I mean, to some degree, Kentucky, those trips take something out of me. I'll tell you that. The first 4 games of the season, Georgia essentially is scoring at about a 40-point clip this season. It's a little shy of that. So, what is progress? What is success for Georgia this week? I talk about that later on Final Feelings. But, I mean, if Mitchell plays, and say Mitchell gets 2 catches, or 3 would be a lot. Let's just say he gets 2 catches. One of them is a 20-yard reception down the field. That's a good starting point, because he's basically got, I mean, I wouldn't say it's a month, but the Tennessee game is on the 5th. The Florida game's on the 29th. And from today, that's 16 days. So 2 full weeks and a little bit. To me, that's plenty of time to play against Florida. It's certainly enough time to play against Tennessee. And trust me when I tell you, Georgia's season is about to start in a very real way. Um, it was hard to imagine them being really challenged at the beginning of their season outside the Oregon game. That was their most lopsided win. I mean, when you like just look at the score, they haven't beaten anybody else by 46 points yet. Vanderbilt is on cue though; they're up on deck. So, Matt is very smart. I think anyone who knows Georgia's program knows that both Matt and John Stinchcomb are smart, have been smart, and I just wonder what is the right amount of work for AD Mitchell this week against Vanderbilt. I would hope it's not zero, but you can't really expect him to go out there and catch the ball 6 times.